What's good? It is Sean, the host of the Leadership Lounge. We are back for another amazing episode. The Leadership Lounge is our opportunity to talk to founders, CEOs, and leaders from across the country who are killing it in their industries and really making an impact in leadership. You're tuned in for another amazing episode. All right, welcome to the Leadership Lounge. This is Sean, your host, and I'm super excited to welcome to the Leadership Lounge my good friend, Steve Solomon. Listen, welcome, Steve. How are you?
I'm okay. What's your name again?
Sean.
I love that. They always do that on TV, you know, my real good personal friend. And then they bring in somebody they never met before. But you and I go back, don't we? Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And I'm honored to call you a friend. And certainly I'm excited about today's conversation. Once again, welcome, Steve. We have been on this journey together for quite some time now. I want us to dig into your background. Tell us a little bit about how you got started on your comedic journey. And yeah, take us back.
Well, I started out as a sperm. I was a good swimmer and apparently fond of eggs. And after 9 months in one controlled condition, I'm pretty much looking for that same. Anyway, I started out because my parents said, you have to be a teacher, so you'll always have a job. You know, my Italian mother, you always want to have work. That's what you need, work. You have to. And so I worked on my degree as a physics teacher. I got my master's degree, physics teacher, and then I had aspirations of being the best superintendent of schools in New York. So I started my doctoral program at CW Post College, and my brain turned to jello. I couldn't take bureaucracy. I couldn't take politics. You know me, Sean, and I just couldn't take it. And they were always yelling at me that I was too loose and too funny and making jokes. But the important thing was that I was very comfortable behind a microphone. And I used to do roasts for my mother's church and my father's synagogue. And I was very comfortable doing jokes and stuff like that. And I left education, and I just figured that if I didn't do it, you'd be reading about me in the papers. And a lot of things I went into other businesses, they didn't work. And then when I was really down and out, I mean, I don't want to get depressive, but when I was really down and out and I had nothing, zero, zilch, a guy called me up. His name was Rick Morgan. He lives on Long Island. And he says, he's got a British accent, Rich. He talks like this, you know. And he says, Steve, I was at the church a couple of weeks ago and I saw you. You're doing, you've got a great bit of talent. You know that? I said, no, I just, well, I'd like you to try out some things. And he's the man who put a microphone in my hand.
Wow.
And I went to a comedy club, paid me $50. I went to a comedy club and I was horrible. A guy, you know, they yell at you. How'd you get so fat? And now our next act will be and, I was a wreck, but it took about 5 years for me to develop material and get confident.
Wow.
And the rest is history. And I don't want to bore your viewers, but it wound up on Broadway. My show wound up. My mother's Italian, my father's Jewish, and I'm in therapy. Wound up on Broadway, 2 sold-out years at the Schubert Theater.
Wow.
And still working. 11,500 performances to date. Yeah. I'm really getting old, Sean. I'm telling you, I'm really getting old. But that's how I got started. It was a series of accidents, and for a while, I know you talk about faith. For a while, I lost faith. I went through a divorce. I lost my house. I lost my cars. My kids hated me. I mean, I was miserable. And one day, I remember this so well. I was sitting on the porch, and I'm looking up at the heavens, and I'm going, what the hell do you want from me?
Mm.
Couldn't figure it out. And then a day later, Rick Morgan called and he said, I'd like to talk to you about something, Steve. And the rest is pretty much history.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we have my mother's Italian, my father's Jewish, and I'm in therapy. We have my mother's Italian, my father's Jewish, and I'm still in therapy.
Yep.
And we have my mother's Italian, my father's Jewish, and I'm home for the holidays.
Yes, we do.
And then Brooklyn to Broadway, the therapy continues.
Yeah, and there was one in the middle called Cannolis, Latkes, and Guilt. The therapy continues, but Brooklyn and Broadway just opened, and it's a lot of fun. It's a little edgy, it's a little naughty.
Okay.
Oh, because Sean's getting excited already. Okay, so tell me about it. Let's go off the air. We'll talk.
Tell me about it. Listen, we love scandalous over here.
It really is based on my book, which is a bestseller now, thanks to you.
It's
called Political Correctness and Other Forms of Insanity, and then my autobiography, my unauthorized autobiography. Comedian, don't do it; they'll just laugh at you. And I culled from that and I created a show, and it seems to be a hit. And this weekend I go to the Naples Philharmonic to do it down there. And wait. Am I doing that? I don't know. I've done it all over the place so far, and I got a few coming up.
Yeah.
So
take me through a little bit of your process. And you're not only the star of the show, the writer of the show. You're producing the shows. And these are full productions. Take us through what it is to develop this brand.
The people, I have followers from my mother's Italian, my father's Jewish stuff. But when I create a new something new, every logo has to reference the original show. So if your viewers go online to my website, stevesolomon.net, and click on Brooklyn Broadway, the logo comes up, and right at the top of the logo it says, from the star and creator of my mother's Italian, my father's Jewish, from Brooklyn to Broadway, and that reminds them who I am. And that's it. If you want the story of how it's built, I could tell you how we got from stand up to Broadway.
Yeah, come on, tell us.
That was exciting. When we came down to Florida, I was nobody, absolutely nobody. I mean, we didn't have 10 cents. Jane and I didn't have 10 cents. And if you ask about faith, she was the only one on the planet that I had faith in. Because Jane's attitude was, okay, let's do it. I mean, we had nothing to lose in New York. I didn't have a job. We had lost a lot of money. We had lost millions on business ventures. And we came down to Florida, and I struggled while she worked, and I struggled trying to do stand-up. And I was too old for the groups. Everybody else was 20 years younger than me. And, hey, dude, how you doing, dude? What's happening, man? How you doing? Awesome. Everything's awesome. And it wasn't my ilk, but I couldn't fit in. And I came up with the idea of my mother's Italian, my father's Jewish, and I'm in therapy. And I said to my manager at that time, we were just friendly. She was an agent. I said, we got to go to the William Morris agency. They were the biggest agency in the planet. And she said, they'll never look at you. They'll never talk to you. And I said, I don't know. Let's go. So we went into New York City, 52nd Street, I think 6th or 7th Avenue, and we went up to the William Morris Agency. And I walked in there, and I needed to see a guy named Kenny DiCamillo, who was head of theatrical and comedy. And I walk in there, and who's sitting in the lobby? The entire cast of Law and Order. Law and Order. I was drooling. I'm going, geez, and I said to the lady, I'd like to see Mr. DiCamillo. And she says, do you have an appointment? I said, no. Well, he's not seeing anybody for the next few months. And I said, I'll wait. And I sat down in the lobby, and then Kenny walked by, 6'6", 310 pounds, a monster. If there was a living Sasquatch, that was Kenny. And he walked past me 6 or 7 times during the morning. We sat there for hours. And then just around noontime, he says to me, what are you here for? I said, I'm here to see you. Do you have an appointment? No, I don't see anybody just walking in. I said, I think you'll want to talk with me. And he says, what do you got? I said, I got a great idea. And he says, 5 minutes, kid. So we walk into his office and we're walking past statues from the Emmy Awards and Oscar all along the wall. My nipples were hard. I mean, I couldn't believe it. We sit down and he says, so what do you got? I said, I'm a comic. And he stops me and he says, my roster starts with George Carlin and ends with Ray Morano. Do you think I need another comic? So I said, well, I have a show called My Mother's Italian, My Father's Jewish, and I'm in Therapy. He busts out laughing. He says, can I get that show? I said, sure. And he says, is it finished? I said, no. I hadn't written a line for the show. I just had the title.
Wow.
There was nothing there. He calls up a guy by the name of Steve Janicki from the King Center for the Performing Arts in Melbourne, Florida. And he says, I got a show called My Mother's Italian, so and so and so. Steve Janicki starts laughing. He says, you want to put it in? He says, yeah. He says, well, what's it going to cost us? And Kenny puts his hand on the microphone. Now, Sean, I was making $100 a show. Kenny says, well, he's going to need $25,000 for the week. Let's put it in for 2 weeks. And Steve Janicki says, okay. And I'm like in another planet. I do not accept what I'm hearing at this point. And I keep saying to him, but I don't have the show. And he went like this. So you'll finish writing it. Don't worry about it. Well, it took an hour and a half. I stayed in his office and he booked almost $200,000 worth of performances for a show that didn't exist. Wow. And he said, you got to go bust your ass and write this thing. It was 10 months up, 10 months out to do it. I was numb. It was like I was in somebody else's movie. They signed me to the William Morris Agency then and there. Went downstairs and I called Jane, my beautiful bride, and she said, how did it go? I said, we have $200,000 worth of bookings for the title. The show's got to be written, and I'm a client of William Morris. And we both started to cry. It was just a shocker. And then I worked for 10 months, killing myself to write it. And I got a wonderful director. We interviewed about 10 directors. And Andy, now, you know I'm politically incorrect. You know that.
I know that.
And I hope all your viewers know that.
I need you to be you.
All right. Well, so we interviewed, and Andy was the swooshiest gay guy on the planet. Everything was, oh, it's fantastic. Oh, it is gorgeous. This is going to be the way it is. I love that guy so much. You can't believe.
Yeah.
And he would quit on me probably every 2 weeks. That's it. I'm out of here. I can't take this anymore. You're a moron. You're an idiot. I'm out of here. And then a week later, he'd call up and say, all right, we have to get together on the other part of the play, because that was it. So we've loved each other for 22 years already. Wow. And so we hired Andy, and he worked with me, and he understood, because I'm dyslexic, horribly dyslexic. He understood that. And he stopped yelling at me after the first couple of weeks. He goes, you really don't see numbers, do you? I said, I don't see numbers. Okay, all right. We'll work around it. Don't worry about it. And it opened, and then it toured for a year, and then it opened on Broadway. And
wow.
That was a miracle. Opening night on Broadway was something else.
But Steve, the whole process was a miracle. Literally.
You're right. It should not have happened. There's no way. And it was just my determination of why do I have this talent for voices and characters if I can't use it? Wow. And that's what worked. That was it. We kept pushing and pushing. And then why did I write a second show? Because we had just finished 6 weeks at the Resorts International in Atlantic City. And the buyer, somebody named Tina, came down to talk with Kenny, and Abby, my manager, was there. And she said, Kenny, let's hold off for a year and bring him back next year. And Kenny said, well, what about his holiday show? And I looked at Kenny, what the hell are you talking about? I didn't have a holiday show. And Abby looks at Kenny. We both look at Kenny. I said, Oh, the holiday show. Kenny says, yeah, Steve comes home for the holidays. Yeah, my mother's Italian, my father's Jewish. I'm home for the holidays. There, yeah, it sounds great. She says, it sounds great. Let's put it in December. So I had 6 months to write a holiday show. So I
Mm.
call Andy up. I said, we have to write a holiday show. He says, well, how long do we have for it? I said, 6 months. No, you can just go to hell. I'm not doing this. I'll kill myself before. I would rather die than doing. Yes, 5 months later, we had a show that was mounted up.
Okay, so we go from 10 months in the first try, then we go down to 6 months. So
Yeah.
now you are being forced to produce in these time constraints. What did that teach you about yourself?
That I could do it.
Wow.
The important thing is that this is not stand up. These are full productions with sets and lighting and sound and music
Mhm.
and everything. The first one was the toughest, but knowing what I learned from the first one, I knew what we could do for the second, third, fourth, and fifth, and now this one. This is adorable, but that's what it took.
Wow. There's leaders that are listening to this podcast, and I want them to, I just want to take a moment for them to understand that it was faith that walked into that door for you to even sit there and wait with no appointment.
Yeah,
But
nothing.
then it was the work that followed that blind faith that you had that
Yeah,
you produced, under
it was.
pressure.
Yeah, it was brutal work. I mean, it was literally 10, 12 hours a day. We would stop just to pee. I mean, when we were rehearsing. And
Yeah.
I didn't know how to properly block myself on stage. I wasn't
Mm,
an actor.
yeah.
So Andy would show me how to walk around the stage and stop, walk around the stage and stop. And I don't know if well, I'm sure you're aware of this, but actors can do their lines when they're in the spot on the stage that they're supposed to be. But if you move them out of spot, they forget their lines. So if Andy would say, let's take it from your mother walked into the doctor's office, I would have to walk to the couch, stand by the couch, and then I could do the lines. And that's called blocking. And we learned all about that. And it was exciting. It was a lot of fun.
I love that. I love that. I want to go back a little bit. You shared something when you were talking about your journey, and you talked about being a business owner and those businesses not really working out.
No.
And one of the things that I share with leaders of when I talk to them from around the world is that leadership often looks like one mountain, one valley, another mountain, another valley, but being able to stay the course through the mountains and the valleys. And so talk to me and our audience a little bit about those successes and failures before comedy and how those experiences prepared you for this comedic journey you've been on.
Well, without the comedic journey, I would have blown my brains out. Let me tell you.
Mm.
When I left education, I was on a high. I mean, I had all these fabulous degrees and everything like that. And a long story too long is that we developed a relationship with governments in the Caribbean basin, Antigua, Barbuda, the Dominican Republic, and my friend was very into telecommunications, and we actually, after a while, raised the money to build and operate cable television systems in the Caribbean basin, Antigua, Barbuda, and we were developing one for Barbados. Television systems, I mean, like, Comcast kind of stuff, but on their level. We raised, I don't know, 6 million, $7 million. And I lived down there on and off for every 2 weeks, building and developing the system. And it worked pretty well. But unfortunately, the governments down there, they have to own 51% of any foreign entity. And which means in reality, you really don't have control. So if they decide to do X, Y, and Z, you got to go along with it or you got a problem. Everything worked out great for 8 years. And then the good Lord decided that it was time for me to quit. He hit those islands with Hurricane Luis, I think 89 and 90, which destroyed Antigua, Barbuda, Dominican Republic. Destroyed. I mean, if you go back in history, it was one of the most devastating hurricanes on the planet. And we were wiped out. And I would say, okay, well, it hit Antigua, but we still have the money from Barbuda. Oh, wait. the thing would hit Barbuda, but it could never turn around and hit the Dominican. Oh yeah. So it was like I was laying out a track for the devil to follow me in the Caribbean. Within 2 weeks, we had lost almost $6 million, and that was
Wow.
devastating. And my wonderful partners, the love of my life, they disappeared.
Mm.
They went to Trinidad. They went this place, that. They were gone. So guess who was forced to hold the bag? Me. And it was very difficult. Then that's when the banks took my house, my cars, and my wonderful wife said, "Look, I can't live like this. I'm out of here. This is ridiculous." And she divorced me. So it was a bad, bad couple of weeks for me.
Weeks,
And
not months, weeks.
that all happened in weeks. And I was riding high. Man, I had a giant house. I had all kinds of sports cars, but that was also stupid too.
Mm.
It's not a great. I guess the IT kids in Seattle think differently, but it's not a great time to be rich when you're in your 30s. You do
Yeah,
dumb things, and
so
I
true.
did a lot of dumb things, and it was wrong. I learned a horrible lesson, and I also learned who you can trust and who you can't trust.
Yeah.
And that was when you say about faith. I had the greatest faith on earth with my partner. I mean, he would never hurt me. Well, 8 years
Yeah.
later, we wind up in court at each other's throat, and it was all about dollars. And that's why I think Jane, my wife, is incredible. She never thinks about dollars, never thinks about them. She always looks at the process, the product. Who am I dealing with? And if somebody calls me up and says, "Steve, we want you to do a show at X, Y, and Z," and she doesn't get a good feeling about these people, she won't let me do it, and I don't do it. I just have total faith in her. She's incredible.
Wow.
And that's the story. You go. Yeah, I was at the top of the mountain for 8 years, the top, and then as low as you could go, and that was it.
Yeah, but look at today. You keep going. I think those valleys teach us something about perseverance if we allow the valleys to teach us something. One of the things you talked about is Jane, and I love Jane so very much. As and we've really formed a really great relationship over the years. What has the price been for your family as you've navigated the various seasons of your life? The impact of leadership, your leadership on your family.
Well, I was, pretty much king of the roost. When I was overseas, I used to fly the kids down to visit with daddy at the places. And fortunately, they were both in college when everything fell apart. So we weren't on a one-to-one basis.
Okay.
And they didn't like the divorce, but they didn't pick sides.
Mm.
And I never said your mother's an asshole, even though she was an asshole. I never said it. And so they maintained communication with her and of course with me. And then subsequently, when I started to tour, they all came to the Broadway opening, and even my ex-wife and her husband came to the Broadway opening, and we stayed in touch, and we have an amicable relationship right now. Um, the kids stay in touch, and when my son, who lives in California, flies in to visit with me, we'll fly him up to visit his mother in New York. So it's pretty good. The relationship is fine. It wasn't. It was momentarily damaging to the family, but that was it. And they still call advice and counsel. One of the problems with being in Mensa is they think you have the answers to everything. I don't. I don't. So
Yeah,
that's it. But it's
yeah,
cool. Yeah.
yeah. Family, for me is very important. On this journey, it's almost 10 years that I've been in business full time, and I often think of the sacrifices that I've made for my own family, and then the sacrifices they've had to make for this lifestyle that I've chose to build. And
Yeah.
most recently, I was thinking about. I took some time off, and it was just really wonderful just to sit and spend time with family. And it hit me like, man, I work so much. I actually am missing a lot of time at home. And so I made a decision that, you know, none of this is worth it if we don't get to spend those moments with the people who help make all of this worthwhile. So that was why I really wanted to know about the
Yeah,
family dynamic,
it's
because
true. I
leadership
mean, you know,
impact.
Jane and I were together for like 20 years, and we were not married. And it was a very interesting thing when we were living up in Georgia near you. Um, we were out on the deck, and she looked at me and she said, "You know, we've never had all the grandkids and all the kids together in the same spot at the same time. Let's get married." And I said, "Fine." So 21 flights later and 21 hotel rooms later, we had everybody there. I had a big sign on the wall. You know me, I'm crazy. I had a giant sign that said, "If you don't show up, you're out of the will." And as they came in, they had to write their name on the wall, showing they showed up. It was really
I was
cute.
present. I was there.
Yeah, so it was a lot of fun. It was cute.
Wow.
So that's pretty much the adventure. It continues, although COVID really did a number on my business. I mean, I was
Mhm.
doing 50 performances a year, and after COVID, it's about 25. Although every time Jane says to me, "You know, you can retire," I said, "That's what I want to do. I want to sit around the pool with these old farts going, if I was the mayor, let me tell you what I would do. I would, if I was king, the problem with so and so." I can't do it. I can't do it. I go nuts.
Yeah. Steve, you do all these impersonations. Do you have a favorite impersonation that you get to do?
My sister, the smoker. Everybody asks her.
My sister, the smoker, talks talks like this. And if you ever speak to her, you swear has nothing to do with the cigarettes at all. Nothing. My sister, the smoker.
When she used to call the house, my kids would go, "Daddy."
And Shelly's on the phone.
Man, listen, you are so talented, and I just we talk often, and we on the phone, and there's never been a phone call that you have not put a smile on my face. You have this, it's natural. It's not, this is part of who you are, and I just need our audience to know, like, this is Steve. Steve is a
I
natural
am.
comedian.
You're absolutely right. I have an unfiltered brain. I had
Ah,
an
unfiltered.
my cousin Kenny, who I talk about. My cousin Kenny talks like this. He's a brilliant guy, and you know when you talk to Kenny, you can't believe what's coming out of his mouth. He said to me one time, and it's in the show. He said, "Yeah, I wonder who invented that brush that sits next to the toilet bowl. It really hurts."
Yeah. Wow.
He's scary. Or he said to me, "Stevie, did you ever date a twin?" I said, "I did, Kenny." He said, "How'd you tell the difference?" I said, "Oh, Jill painted her nails and Bob had a penis."
Oh my God. Oh my God. So
No.
you've been in this for over 20 years,
Yeah,
and there are comedians coming up every day. What advice would you give an aspiring comedian in today?
don't stop.
Mm, that's good.
Don't stop. Because as much as you will bomb, you learn something from that moment. Don't stop. And forget your ego, put it in the closet. You don't have one. You're getting up for $100, standing in front of someone so and so and doing your job. You're not going to be George Carlin tomorrow. The guy did it for 45 years.
Mm,
Um, Thanks to media, thanks to social media, you can get noticed a lot faster. But you better have material. You better
yeah.
maintain it, and that's what happened. I don't want to bore you with the old stories, but we had that happen in
Good.
Georgia. When I was living in Noonan, my neighbor came over and said, "My niece's boyfriend is doing stand up in Atlanta and would like to talk to you about the business." I said, "Sure, I'm fine." And the guy calls me up. And the first thing he says was, "Hi, dude." So I said, "No, it's Mr. Solomon, Steve, or sir, but it's never dude."
Yeah.
Okay, all right. He said, "I want to send you a video of my work at one of the comedy clubs in Atlanta." I said, "Sure." So he sends it to me. I looked at it, And he said, I know who you are. I know you were a Broadway star. I know this. Could you give me your honest opinion? I said, you don't want my honest opinion. He said, no, I really do. I said, okay. I said, why do you dress like a pig on stage? He says, excuse me? I said, you got a ripped t-shirt, ripped jeans, you're wearing thongs, and you got your hair down to your ass. I said, you want the audience to look and go, oh, a piece of garbage. He says, well, it's kind of my, I said, it's nothing. It's garbage. You look ridiculous. I said, if you're going to have long hair, that's fine. Put it in a ponytail, put it up on one of those schmuck buns, but do what you got to do. So he says, okay, all right. He said, what about my material? I said, you're afraid of the audience. He said, I am not. I said, sure you are. You deliver a punchline, you take 2 steps back. Why do you do that? And he said, I didn't think I did. I watched your video. And every time he would hit a punch, he would be afraid that they wouldn't react, so he would back away.
Wow.
I said, that's number 2. And you got to clean that up. And I said, and throwing the F-bomb out 10 times an hour doesn't do anything but make you look like a jerk. I said, it doesn't work. So he said, so, okay, thanks. He was pissed. So he says, I'm going to do a video next week and send it to you. I said, sure. So he sends me the video next week. Same thing. But this time I pointed out to him, I said, when you're on stage, the people up there and the people back there and the people over here paid the same as the people in the first row. Why are you just talking to the people in the first row? If you're giving a lecture and you just talk to the people in the first row, everybody feels left out.
Yeah.
Why don't you do that? Oh, I never know. Well, notice. And so it's just when you watch, I mean, you've given lectures and stuff. As soon as you walk on stage, there's oh my God, this guy has presence. This woman has the ability to grab the audience. And the biggest thing is you convince them that you're not afraid of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's power on stage. You just walk out. I learned a trick years ago from George Carlin, may he rest in peace. I had the privilege of opening for him a couple of times. And he said, when they mention your name, the audience is clapping. By the time you get from this side of the stage to the center of the stage, they're not clapping anymore. They were here and now they're here. Now you got to bring them back up to here.
Mm-hmm.
So he taught me to start talking before I get on stage. As soon as they mention my name, and I do that to this day, I'm doing a New Year's concert, which is really stand-up. And they'll go, ladies and gentlemen, Steve Solomon. And I go, my father kills me. He drives me. Before I even walk out on stage, I'm talking. And now they're still up here because they're listening. Wow. And those are techniques that you only learn by doing. And that's how great speakers and great leaders have the ability to grab a group really quickly. Don't get, what's my statement? Oh yeah, silence is the loudest noise a comic can hear. Mm-hmm. And it is. It really is. So we'll see.
Wow. Listen, these are some gems that you have dropped today. Steve, we have a little game that we like to play as we wrap up all of our episodes. And it's called This or That.
Should I be frightened?
Nah, I'm gonna take it easy on you.
All right, okay.
All right. So the first question is, where can I find the best comedy show, Chicago or Broadway, in New York City?
Chicago.
Okay. Second question, which state has better food, New York or Florida?
Florida.
For real?
Well, yeah, because first of all, you got to understand that our palates change. I have an old senior palate down here. So, I get gastric distress from a boiled egg.
Oh, Lord.
So down here you go,
yeah, that's okay. That's okay.
No, the best variety, of course, is New York City.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
I just took Janie out for breakfast this morning to a nice little breakfast space. $31. My God, I couldn't believe it. I can get a hooker in never mind.
Listen, Steve, I want to thank you for coming on the Leadership Lounge. this has been an amazing conversation. You got to come back. We got you in our first season, and I want to thank you and appreciate you for taking time. Where can folks stay in touch with you at?
SteveSolomon.net. That's all. Simple. Just SteveSolomon.net, and that's it. Of course, my books are available on Amazon. All of them are available, but I'm not selling it. Anyway, you look great. You sound great. I'm so proud of you. That's great. Continue your success and stay in touch. All right.
Absolutely. I appreciate you. Listen, that has been another amazing conversation that we just had. I hope you pulled something out of that conversation today. Remember, you can catch this episode and others in the Leadership Lounge right here on YouTube. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and you can always click the bell to get notified of new episodes. All right, we out.